Hey, what's going on? It's Arab here, and welcome back to the Pitlane Podcast, episode 94 today, to discuss a lot of F1 driver transfer news. Kind of odd to say that, really, because a lot of the time we don't really get a lot of that. But yeah, it's our first podcast in the F1 summer break. I know it's been quite some time. There's been a lot of delays to recording, and also, to be honest, it was good timing for us to wait till now, just after some really big news this week from another driver alongside Daniel Ricciardo. But yeah, back with usual hosts, myself, Callum, and Tom here. Let's start off with that very first driver transfer, though. At the very start of the summer break, all the journalists thought they're going to have a nice, calming time, not going to write any articles, they're going to have to write some fluff pieces, and then Daniel Ricciardo announces that he's informed Red Bull that he's going to leave, and then swiftly it was announced that he's going to be joining Renault alongside Nico Hülkenberg for 2019 onwards. Guys, what do you make of just Ricciardo itself moving away from Red Bull to Renault Power, the Works Renault team?
Very, very big move, and it's harkened back, and some people have brought up the ex-Lewis Hamilton move to Mercedes. It's kind of harking back to that, going to a manufacturer where you look like you're in a good position. You don't know what the current team is going to be in future years, and taking a bit of a risk. And it does look a little bit like career suicide to me. I don't want it to be, because I love Daniel Ricciardo to bits, but at first, it does look like career suicide. We've bigged up Renault a lot in terms of in pre-season. We've always been saying, yeah, it looks like they might be able to step up. And yes, they have been getting rid of their Formula E team to focus on Formula 1. And they are a manufacturer at the end of the day, so they can put a lot of money into it. But it's risky. There are rule changes on the horizon in 2 separate years. So we can't write it off. But at the moment, it's interesting to see how he'll go up against Hülkenberg, but it does look like it's going to be a while before we see him on the top step.
I don't think it's career suicide. I think it's a great move. It's an interesting move for sure, but I think it's a great one. At the end of the day, he's not going to win a championship with Red Bull for the next 2 years minimum. With the move to Honda Power Units, you have to think probably not.
It's going to take time,
especially because Ferrari seem to be getting really strong. I think next year's reg change is going to be big. Apparently, Paddy Lowe said it's the biggest one since 2009, which is quite interesting. So
quite
already there's an opportunity there. Will Red Bull benefit? I'm not sure. There's no guarantee, because Red Bull could have the best chassis, but their Honda Power Unit could still let them down, and that's ultimately out of their hands. So I think the way Ricciardo's thinking worked in this decision is, okay, I think Red Bull are going to need another 2 years minimum to build for 2021 and hopefully get the engine situation sorted out. So in that time, I could maybe go to another team, a factory team with a lot of money, and build it around me. And I think it's a good move. I don't see Renault dropping down the order anytime soon. They're just getting stronger. And I think the lineup of Hülkenberg and Ricciardo is mouth-watering. It really is. Hülkenberg's going to get pushed to the next level, even more than what he is right now with Carlos Sainz. And it's going to be really interesting. Both of them, I think, 30 years old, or 29 Ricciardo, 30 Hülkenberg, give or take. So you could argue they're both in their prime. So if Renault deliver a semi-decent car, it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really good move.
Yeah, I mean, I think since they got into F1, it's been an upward trajectory. So it's just about Ricciardo's pinning the hopes that eventually with these reg changes, not for 2019 only, just 2021 as well, maybe, that upward trajectory can maybe take a bit of a leap rather than like a nice glide up.
He gets 2 bites to the cherry, basically.
Yeah, he gets 2 chances to see the jump up. But like you said, like with the Red Bull situation, you don't know what's going to happen with Honda, and ultimately it's out of their decision. I almost kind of liken it to Ricciardo's getting into bed with something he knows rather than something he doesn't know. Like, he knows the Renault engine. He knows where Renault are right now. And like you said, Tom, I don't know if Cal thinks any differently, but I don't think they'll drop down in 2019. So he knows the baseline, essentially, and it can only go up from there, hopefully. Whereas with Honda, there is that slight chance. We've seen it before with McLaren. They tried something too much in 2016, wasn't it? Or 2017. They tried something too fancy with reworking the engine, and they went down rather than up. So you just never know, despite Honda looking better these days with Toro Rosso. So I think from him,
There's 2 more arguments here as well. I think you have to be realistic. With Renault, let's be honest, they can't get any worse. In my opinion, I don't think it can get any worse.
True,
I think there'll be some extra added fuel to the fire with the whole Red Bull engine split. They're going to want to stick it to them. So they've already publicly said they want to really make sure their engine's very good going forward. Also for McLaren's sake as well. And also I think for Ricciardo, listen, I think it's not suicide because it's only a 2-year deal. So when 2020 rolls around for the 2021 season, he'll only be 30, 31.
A lot
so
of
he
the
can
top
still
drivers are doing that.
Literally, exactly. So it could still go to Ferrari in 2021 if that's the long sort of move they've always been rumouring about. So
he can bide his time there.
Exactly. So I think it's not suicide. I think it's a very good time to make the move. I think he's got 2 years where he can experiment, and even then he will know what Renault have in the pipeline for 2021, and then he can make a decision anyway. So for me, I think it's a brilliant move. I think he wasn't going to win with Red Bull, so he might as well go left field and experiment.
And it puts him in a good... Go on.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, it's interesting from the Red Bull's perspective as well, because I'm going to shout out a fellow podcast, Beyond the Grid, because it's absolutely brilliant, hosted by Tom Clarkson. And I don't know whether you two or anyone has watched the interview he did with Christian Horner. And that podcast was recorded a day after Ricciardo had told Christian Horner about the news, about the fact that he was going to leave. And it's how interesting how Red Bull was so set in stone. They were almost 99% sure that Ricciardo was going to stay, and to the point where Horner thought he was joking about it, which is hilarious in itself, because apparently he just laughed on the phone, and then Ricciardo was like, no, I am leaving, like, I'm not joking about this. And also the comments that Horner made at the fact that he thinks Ricciardo's left because he needs a smaller environment, and the fact that he feels that Ricciardo is scared, scared is probably the wrong word, but slightly intimidated by Verstappen and his upward growth. And
I think
it was very interesting comments.
Shady comments. I think Red Bull have a tendency to package something up and then spit it out. So, Ricciardo was this nice, hot, fiery prospect when he was alongside Vettel, and they were well behind him back then. So now, because he's got a couple of years on him now, they just decided, we know what, a bit too old for us. We've got Verstappen anyway, so it's all right, it's calm. In the process, not really caring too much about their younger driver academy also. So that pool, to me, is wearing thin very fast.
Yeah, I think he just worded it in a way, really like underneath, if you unwrapped it, it's kind of basic case of, I think, Ricciardo, I think even Horner can see that. Ricciardo, like you mentioned, Tom, just wants a place where maybe he can build it around him, and he's not going to get Red Bull to build around him because it's very clearly getting built around Verstappen, essentially, to pin him up for eventually, their hope is, when the car's good enough, that Verstappen can go get that championship.
Fully. It's the same thing as Vettel and Webber all over again.
Yeah. So, and also at the same time, like you said, with Renault's being a works team, also you just know it's also going to be a cushy contract as well for Ricciardo as well. So he's going to be treated well there.
Payday.
He's going to be treated like a king there. So only ups for him. I mean, the only downside is it's a bit of a step back, but sometimes you've got to go back to go forward in F1. Sometimes.
At the end of the day, people make good points. Verstappen is a very good teammate. He will struggle to win a championship with him. I'm not to say Verstappen's streets ahead of him. I think they're very equal because Verstappen's, for all of Verstappen's positives and his pace he's got, his amount of inexperience and thick skin and big-headedness is what Ricciardo beats him at, and that makes it a level playing field. But it would make it hard in a championship situation, So
it'll be a lot like 2010. I feel where Webber was just as fast back in the day in 2010 against Vettel.
Definitely.
Because Vettel was just getting into his shoes. But you could clearly still see things like Silverstone when Vettel got the new wing instead of Webber, is that preferential treatment, which we haven't really seen a lot of, but you can bet that once we got to that point where championships on the line.
You can sense it. You can sense that Verstappen has had preferential treatment in certain cases.
There were rumours of the contract, wasn't there?
Yeah, with the contract, for example, like they are on equal terms, yet there's quite a bit of a gap in their pay. Like Verstappen's on a significant amount more, and Ricciardo did ask for it. And I think Horner said that Red Bull had pretty much given him everything he'd asked for. But at the end of it, like pretty much like German GP, they were like, let's just give him all of it. We want to keep Daniel Ricciardo, and I think that's why it looked a lot deeper than what it was with Ricciardo, and the fact that deep down he wanted to leave, even being on the same amount of money as Verstappen, being on equal terms. It just wasn't his environment anymore, and he wants
because he's not going to be on equal terms. The fact that the original contract was nowhere near what Verstappen got offered, that alone says to you that the team don't value you as highly as Verstappen.
Exactly.
So,
even if you
automatically, it's like how can I put it? You could lie to me really badly and then be a straight up honest after that, but I'm always going to remember that lie and be like, but you still did this to me that one time, and I'm not. It never really went down well with me.
That first low ball, still. It lingers in your mind. So
exactly. So I think ultimately it broke the camel's back.
So Ricciardo to Renault for 2019. Obviously that puts Carlos Sainz out of a job at Renault. Sainz was already talking about before the Hungarian Grand Prix weekend in practice interviews about he was always being questioned about his kind of thing, and he literally said it kind of depends on Ricciardo, doesn't it? Like if he's signing, then it looks like I'm definitely not at Red Bull then, so I've got to see my options. But now that Ricciardo signed for Renault, at the time we were like, okay, so now does this open the door? Because the way Sainz was talking about it is pretty much yeah. So because he's signing,
I don't think it was the way he spoke about it. To me, it sounded like a relief. Like, okay, I think I can finally leave now.
I don't know what. Obviously, different. He'd done many different interviews. The one I watched before Hungary was kind of like the way he sounded was kind of like, yeah. So yeah, what can you do? Because Ricciardo is going to sign for Red Bull, so I'm definitely not going to be a Red Bull racing driver. So what I need to assess my options, and it kind of also hinted at I'm definitely never going back to Toro Rosso, of course. So
yeah, I watched the one after the race when the race was done.
No, this was before. So
the interviewer was saying, "What are you thinking over the summer? Do you think you make a decision?" And there was almost like a relief, like not because he knew what Ricciardo was going to do, but because the way he was speaking was like, you know what? I think I've got a lot of options on the table, so I'm going to really assess them all because, yeah, I am a Red Bull driver. There's that clause in my contract until September. But the way he spoke about it wasn't sort of like, oh, I can't wait to get back in that Red Bull car now. He never once mentioned it. So I think he's gone. I think he's gone to McLaren.
Yeah.
I think he's liked not being in the Red Bull family, like being a little bit off to the side in a different world. I think he's relished on seeing what it's like to be
I think the
out
way
of that world.
His move to Renault worked out anyway was kind of like the wheels were turning for him to leave the Red Bull family anyway because Helmut Marko kind of agreed to the loan because he could see Sainz was a bit frustrated that he wanted to try something different. He wanted to move away from Toro Rosso and just have a different environment, different challenge maybe. And at that point it's kind of like a case of, okay, we frustrated him so much that I think we're going to have to let him go at some point. I think this is the time because, okay, we'll pause on the Red Bull talk for a sec because it kind of plays into Sainz. So right before this week, so it was actually a good thing that we delayed the podcast because then we got this news to talk about then. Fernando Alonso announcing with McLaren that he's not going to be racing for McLaren in 2019. He's going to be racing in F1 in 2019. So obviously that's a big hole in McLaren, big hole in Formula One as a whole.
Yeah.
The way Alonso worded that, we'll focus on Alonso first, then what it means. So Alonso, the way he worded it in his little press thing was also the fact that if McLaren are ever good enough in the future, i.e. maybe 2021 or in the future even, the way he set it up was, yeah, he could come back and race for McLaren once they're good enough. But for now, he doesn't want to race in the McLaren, he doesn't want to race in F1 in 2019. Just straight up reactions from you. I know Tom probably has more of a reaction because he was kind of your man's rival, Schumacher's rival for so long. So you've talked before on the podcast about that kind of respect now, but you used to kind of not like him. But now, obviously, you've talked so much about how much you rate him.
Yeah, Cal will take it away. I'll wait for this.
I was shocked. Like, you know, at first, you look at it and you see that countdown and you're wondering, like, what was he going to do? And obviously we have said IndyCar looks like the way he's going to go. It is interesting the way he has worded it. It does have some slight relevance to how Jenson Button left the sport. Whether or not Fernando Alonso will be returning, I would love to see him return in a decent car. Will McLaren be able to make a car in that short time frame? Uncertain. I'm not really sure. But it is hilarious how whipped Fernando Alonso has got McLaren just to the point where he can go, yeah, I'm leaving, and I might just turn back up again in a couple of years' time when you actually make me a decent car. But I have got to say, on an all serious note, it is a massive disappointment on the face of it, just because he's one of the three greats, as it's known, on the grid at the moment, alongside Vettel and Hamilton, and the fact that he's leaving does allow another young, exciting prospect to jump in, but there are so many qualities of Alonso that we're going to lose. The F1 is going to be a slightly poorer place, but the video and the little PR video that they made, the 1 minute video for Instagram and Twitter, I've watched that about 10, 15 times. I absolutely love it. There's just something about it. I don't know. I've never seen Alonso speak like that before. I'm not entirely sure. It was a very odd experience, but, you know, there's certain clips where he was in all of his old team gear and everything. I like, at least, they put a lot of effort into his announcement. And he truly took. I think he realised how serious it is that Fernando Alonso is leaving Formula One to go elsewhere. But other than that, there's a place at McLaren, which is the exciting bit. But we'll pause on that and carry on talk about Alonso with you two.
Well, the video gave me the feels right at the end. I was like, man, like it was just yesterday. We was watching him in the original McLaren gear, or even the Ferrari gear, back in 2010. Yeah. And then for me personally, the old OG Renault gear. But yeah, fair play to him. I think it's a genius move because he's 37. Why would you waste time in your career when, in my opinion, he's in his prime? He should go pursue that Indy 500 crown, get that triple crown, because I think he's driven the best he ever has. He proved when he went to Indy, he could have maybe actually done it in his first year. As a wild card, so fair play to him. He's going to get on with WEC. Hopefully, wins the championship there. Then he goes into IndyCar, conquers that as well, and then I think he could probably come back in his 40s and still be just as good. I think he's got better with age, and it's really surprised me how good he's gotten with age. And yeah, like you mentioned, Carl, I think it's going to be a bit of a loss for F1 in terms of a personality standpoint, but I do believe he will be back. I think at some point, even if McLaren have a top 4 car or something like that. I think he's fancy himself.
I would not be shocked if he comes back in not even 2021, 2022. If McLaren, like you say, like even half better than they are now, top 4, like you say, with the sniff of a podium or a win here and there. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like you said, he has literally, seemingly just defied physics in a way, almost like Ronaldo's in football, like Messi's. They just seem to get better and better, even though they're getting older and older. It's kind of like the same kind of figure way, basically. So, it is a big loss.
It's incredible. I mean, motivation, 17 seasons. If he'd done one more season, it would have been the most race starts ever, even more than Michael Schumacher. So, it would have been... Oh, sorry, no, I think Jenson Button holds the record, I think, for most GP starts. It would have been the record, and it makes you realise the longevity of the guy, how long he's been in the sport. I think what surprised me, though, it did surprise me that it actually happened. When it hit that moment when it actually is official and it hits you, it's like, oh, wow, it's actually happened. And also the thoughts were, I genuinely thought he was going to stay for one more year. I thought the reports of IndyCar, it sort of went a bit cold in the last 2 months. It looked very positive at first, but apparently because of the funding, willing to pay Alonso's wages, they couldn't find a team that was willing to support him for a whole season. So it was looking a bit, it might not happen, and you could tell in the interviews as well, Alonso just sort of seemingly got his head down with F1 and talking about the car.
Vibe,
Turns out he said he made his decision a long time ago, so maybe the significance was the rumours going cold or something had been struck maybe a little while back, and also he was just getting his head down for business, knowing what he was going to do at the end of the season. But I look forward to seeing him in person one more time at Spa, if it is the last time.
Yeah, definitely,
But that's the thing, though. When you take it, you can take it that seriously. That like us going to Spa, it's the last time you're going to see possibly him in a Formula One car, and it's like it's odd. You almost take it for granted because he's been in the sport for so long, and when these big greats walk out of the sport, it's like when Button left. Like I've always when I think Formula One, Button was in every season that I've watched, and the fact that and then the first season where he wasn't in it, I thought this isn't right. There's something wrong.
Yeah. And there's been a few tweets, but he's one of those of my generation grew up watching. I think there's only Kimi left, and you could argue Hamilton. Hamilton sort of in between eras, Hamilton and Vettel, especially Hamilton because he started winning started winning very early on. They came into the sport at the same time, but Hamilton was winning straight away. For me personally, the way I associate generations, for me, Raikkonen now is the last driver of that generation. For me, Hamilton was next generation in terms of the quality of driver he is.
I'd like to see Alonso kind of reflect Schumacher, like coming back to the sport for maybe 3 years.
Definitely.
And I think he can do it 100% because
he will. Because the thing is, he's going to he's going to carry on racing. Schumacher didn't. He stopped. We know. Also neck injuries.
I mean,
hopefully
even then,
Alonso doesn't get hurt.
Even then, like when we talk about coming back, like Schumi came back, and like on occasion, you could still see that kind of little magic in the spark.
We got bloody pole at Monaco.
Yeah, he still had those sparks, that he retained. So Alonso, you bloody well know he's going to keep that kind of spark about him, and he'll drag.
I feel like we are seeing that though. You look at Button, the age he retired, Massa. It's like even though people are getting younger and younger, like in football, when people come into sports, I feel like those who stick around are sticking around older and older. I associate Fernando Alonso with Valentino Rossi, who's 39. His contract with Yamaha, which is a top 3 team, runs out in 2021, so he will be nearly 42 on a top bike when he retires. And you just don't see it that often. You know, Raikkonen's 38, pushing 39 now as well.
Yeah.
And apparently he's rumoured signed a new 2-year deal. You know, 1 year plus an optional extra until 2021. So you're seeing those old dogs still sticking around. Like Raikkonen is double the age of Verstappen. Let that sink in for a moment.
Yeah, I think in general, in sports in these days, because the tech they can use and just like the knowledge about fitness and whatnot gets better and better. They can also just keep on top of it and keep on their prime a lot better. Like we see in every sport now. You know, football is a great example of like, you know, way back in the day when we were all kids, I think the prime and the retirement age was pretty much your prime is, and you peak at like 25, 27, then you retire at 32. But you've got like now footballers still going and still setting good records or a good number of goals per season.
I think also it's because you've got more opportunities elsewhere outside. So, for example, a lot of players go to the MLS, such as Wayne Rooney or Zlatan Ibrahimovic at the moment, who are currently tearing it up in the MLS. And I think there are more motorsport opportunities now. For example, Formula
that's
E,
good. Yeah,
WEC.
good comparison. Yeah,
there are a lot of places where they can go, and if you're good enough, i.e. Fernando Alonso, you can go off, you can do your own thing, and you could probably return back to the Premier League, for example. You could come back to the top flight, and still perform because how brilliant fitness is at the moment. So. But yeah, it's a huge shame. I think we're all going to miss him quite a lot. But it's exciting to see who can replace. It's nice to see, as much as we don't want to see these greats go, it means we've got young people. And anyone who does watch GP2, there are so many
we got seats, boys. We got seats.
GP2 drivers.
Listen, I know they're right. I think we know what's happening. I think one Matador is leaving way for another Matador.
We're kind of transitioning very smoothly into that. Disclaimer for this this next part. We start talking about Sainz after Alonso's retirement. As we finish recording this very podcast, we saw on Twitter that McLaren have announced Carlos Sainz is going to McLaren. So
about 30 seconds ago.
Literally 30 seconds. So Tom and me, kind of all three of us, congrats guys, we called it correctly about Sainz to McLaren. So well done, pat on the back for us. So good stuff. But I'll try and maybe edit a little bit out of the podcast now of us waffling on about that. But there will be a bit of talk of us pretending like we don't know what's happening because we genuinely did not know until after the podcast.
Literally hit stop and it was there.
Yeah, literally. We clicked stop recording and it happened. The curse of the podcast continues, even when we thought we'd waited long enough to get the Alonso news. But there you go. Bit of a caveat to the podcast.
At least we saved this one. We have to upload at least the podcast wasn't uploaded.
Exactly.
We can still save
and
it.
You don't have to comment it either. Like there's gonna be 1,000 comments going.
Yeah, there's not gonna be comments saying we missed it. So there we go. Move on for the rest of the podcast. I hope you guys enjoy the rest. Let's try and make a bit of a puzzle here. So we've got me and Tom. Cal, do you kind of agree? Sainz to McLaren probably.
Yeah, but it's in and around him that's confusing me still with the likes of Norris,
so we're going to say Sainz to McLaren,
Ricciardo to Renault. Like we do it all. So Ricciardo to Renault, Sainz to McLaren. We agree Norris to Toro Rosso.
But alongside who? Van Dorn still?
I think Van Dorn staying.
Staying
after
put.
the Alonso bombshell, I think he's staying.
Yeah, he gets saved by that pretty much. So Sainz and McLaren, we think that, and with Van Dorn. So yeah, so Toro Rosso then. What we say?
Norris and Hartley.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I've heard rumours Hartley's staying.
I think this is also saving Hartley's career in F1 because it gives him another year basically. Because Red Bull, like you said, Tom, they don't have a lot of people left who are even eligible. Like
no.
That's the
problem. They're not eligible.
They're kind of semi-exciting prospects are not even eligible due to the new super license rules.
Dan Ticktum who won the Macau. But who did they get? There was a sports car driver, and I can't remember what his name is.
Jake Dennis.
Yeah, because he did the test, and it's not the first time he got called up.
But like
for
Dan
Barcelona
Ticktum's kind of like I would say he's like half kind of like got a bit of a spark maybe. I don't think isn't like Jake Dennis kind of already past his kind of
he's doing like sports car driving at the minute. That's what he's doing. But he got called up for a Barcelona test with Red Bull, and Hungary. I was reading an interview and he said that he was like really nervous for it all and everything. But they called him up again for the Budapest one because he just slotted straight into the car, knew what he was doing, did the job. I don't know how quick he was, but I think just for a bit of testing out the new 2019 front wing. I think Red Bull did the new 2019 front wing.
Yeah, they did.
Among other teams as well. But it was a very odd name to come up, but there's no one else because Ticktum couldn't get in the car. It's odd with this old super license and everything. But But you'd think a Macau winner could probably have a good go in a Formula 1 car. It is a slight strange one
but
that the FIA
but he doesn't qualify. He hasn't got super license points, so he can't go in. It's not like a question they're not promoting him.
I think that instantly saves Hartley.
Yeah, I know. It's just they're not allowed in it, but it's weird that the FIA are blocking that.
Yeah, I mean, but rules are rules. They apply to everyone. Otherwise, you start in them grey areas, don't you?
Yeah,
so,
I know. But
I think
what it was before was fine. I mean,
so we've got McLaren, we've got Toro Rosso, Renault's done as well.
Also, Toro Rosso in turn also sorts Red Bull because I think Gasly's
there's two worlds, isn't there?
Yeah,
there's Toro
Gasly's
Rosso, Red Bull.
I think Gasly's a shoo-in.
I think, especially now. I think there's no
and also,
way
he knows the Honda engine. He knows how to talk and kind of communicate because obviously they probably speak in English, but there's that kind of just the way you go about it. Gasly's had 2 years now. He had it in Super Formula. And then he's had it now. So he's primed to go to Red Bull and help them out.
And it's a mouth-watering battle, Gasly versus Verstappen. It's going to be interesting,
yeah,
enjoyable to watch.
I want to see that because I think Gasly, the way he's grown, at the rate he's grown, he's matured very, very quickly in F1. I think, you give him a little bit of space in that Red Bull car. First couple of races might go a little bit, just finding your feet. But I think once he finds his feet, I fully rate that he can try and give Verstappen a bit of a run for his money here and there.
Yeah, I'd like to see him do it to rattle Verstappen a little bit, to be honest, because I feel like he's getting a bit too comfortable at Red Bull. Just because now that Ricciardo's gone, I feel like he might take a step back, and that's what Red Bull don't need, to be fair. So they do need a Gasly to come along and push him. But it's quite interesting, actually, now I've thought about it, because it's almost like the grid is split in half between, it seems like there's two different driver markets going on. There's like it's
three,
actually.
Almost, because you've got like all the ones that pinned down drivers.
Yeah.
So we've got
Ferrari, Mercedes, and Renault. They're all sort of, it's Ferrari, Mercedes, and the others all shuffling around.
Yeah, because but it's like we haven't even considered Force India, Haas, like two teams who we don't have a clue what's going to happen with at all.
I think to get this one out of the way, I think we delve into Ferrari, which is the shorter of the two. So Ferrari, Sauber. I think Raikkonen is staying put.
Yeah, I feel like
and
Ferrari
I've got to be honest with you. I don't think Leclerc is very young. I think he's doing well in the last couple of races. Though we have seen that he can make mistakes. I think one more season in an improving Sauber isn't going to hurt him by any means. I think that Sauber's only going to get better and better. Yeah. And to be honest with you, like I mentioned, Raikkonen, since France, when he looked like a dead man walking because he was doing so poorly, he's on a 5 podium streak and he's third in the championship, only about 30 points behind Vettel. So I'd say
he's doing
fair
what
enough.
Ferrari needs, put it that way. Like I think
he plays his role perfectly. It's like for what he's there for, he's doing it beautifully. And why would you get rid of him for that? It makes no sense. And the rumour is he's signed a 1-year deal with the optional extra to get him again to 2021, another driver that is looking for that 2021 open seat move. So I think it makes sense. It's a good move.
To rattle Vettel, I very much doubt it. They don't want to rattle Vettel.
The Ferrari are so close now. Why would they upset the mix, or upset the apple cart, so to speak? So I think Sauber are going to stick with Leclerc. I've got a feeling it's not going to be Ericsson anymore. I think it's going to be Giovinazzi. They seemed very impressed with all of his FP1 outings for some reason.
And also Ericsson seemed not certain.
That surprised me.
I think for the first time, because usually each season he's kind of not really. He seemed pretty confident, but for the first time I kind of heard him being like, "Yeah, I really need to fight for my seat now."
Yeah, I think we saw the same interview that they asked him. So do you reckon you're safe for your seat because you seem to be scoring some points and driving the best you've ever driven? And he literally said, "I'm not so sure. I think I'm fighting for my seat." And I've got a feeling Gio is going to step up next year. I think it's going to be time.
It's weird, though, thinking about Ericsson, because he's been on the grid since 2014, since Caterham. Mad.
I know.
He's been around
He's just gone about his business quietly in a Sauber at the back. Only now have we realised because the Sauber's not at the back.
Yeah, it's just strange that he's been around for so long with Sauber and that one season with Caterham as well.
Yeah.
Odd circumstance, but I don't know. I haven't seen any of the interviews, but I don't know whether what the deal is at Sauber, whether or not they do like the number 1 and number 2 drivers, or because obviously Leclerc is pushing that team along quite nicely, and obviously Sauber won't let go of Leclerc.
If I was a betting man, I'd say Gio takes the seat.
I bet Ferrari
I think
has a slight influence on that.
Ferrari and also Alfa Romeo as a brand will love Giovinazzi, just an Italian in their car.
Italian driver.
I think they can do so much PR work with him.
Yep.
And I think also Leclerc and Gio, I think, get on semi-well. I think, obviously, what was it? It was Gio and Gasly who were teammates, but obviously Leclerc's kind of been in the same sort of circle. So obviously the relationship between them as teammates, I'm assuming, would be good as well. So
I don't think they've ever raced together, though. Well, they didn't race together in GP2 because it was because obviously Leclerc won his debut year, didn't he? So
but that was when Gio had gone away. So
he'd already gone.
They just missed out. They just missed out on that, but
Plus they need to put Giovinazzi in a seat because otherwise he's going to lose his racecraft pretty quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think all in all, that's Ferrari and Sauber. I think so. What's that? Renault, Toro Rosso,
the only ones
McLaren,
left
Red Bull,
are
Ferrari and Sauber. Now it's the Mercedes.
You got the Mercedes Legion because Merc are pinned down. But then what happens with Force India?
Well, I think
we
pretty much know. Go on.
I'm scared about Ocon. I'm really scared for him. I have a feeling the top driver's not going to end up with a seat.
I'm not scared about Ocon. What I'm more scared about is... Well, I'm not scared about it because I don't really care, but the thing that Mercedes are going to worry about is... Because if Ocon was going to Renault, which was quite a big rumour, it would have been perfectly teed up. It would have teed up George Russell winning F2 and then going to Force India. Because either way, it doesn't matter if Norris wins it or not. He's probably going to make the step up to F1 next season. So if Russell wins it and has to leave F2, Merc are going to be put in such a pickle then. Almost now, they're kind of hoping that Russell now doesn't win it for the sake of he could just stay in there for one more season.
I think this is interesting. I really do, because I've got a feeling Ocon will stay in F1. I think he's going to have to downgrade, but I think he will stay in F1. I'm going to put my cards on the table, so I'm going to say... Due to the recent Force India administration situation, where Lawrence Stroll has pretty much brought out the team, Lawrence is going to move to Force India. Alongside him, I think it's either Perez or Ocon. I'm still not sure. I genuinely do not know how to call this. However, at the same time, I do see a very realistic possibility of Perez going to Haas. If Grosjean doesn't perform in the next few races, I can see Grosjean being dropped.
There's been some talk about Perez's sponsors sniffing around Haas.
Yeah, Perez, South American with an American team. They do a lot for the South America region. I think they could bring in a lot as well. And then also, I could perfectly see Ocon in a Williams alongside Sirotkin because Stroll's going to leave the seat open. And for me personally, that's a very mouth-watering lineup with Ocon and Sirotkin, especially if they get their act together a bit for next season with the new regs. It could be, a potential light in the tunnel for Williams. So I can see Ocon staying at Force India, and I can see him also moving to Williams because I can see Perez moving to Haas just as much as I can see Ocon staying at Force India because of that switch.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I do fear for Ocon going to Williams, though, if that was the case.
Not really.
Because, I think if you ever saw a team doing this badly, and then obviously... If Williams came up and did a pitch to him and go, right, this car this year has been awful, but we've stopped developing it for how many races already? We're already developing next year's car. I mean, they'll try.
I don't think he has much of a say. If I'm honest, I think Merc
Toto Wolff takes care of him, so I'm sure he will do what he has to do to keep him in the sport. That's the problem.
But I fear that his motivation might dip.
Yeah, his motivation might dip. It fully might dip, but unfortunately
all I'm talking about is momentum.
Now Ricciardo's gone to that Renault, it basically forces Merck's hand to play a bit of musical chairs with their drivers, and they just have to have Ocon somewhere, and they might have to hope that and cross their fingers that Russell can stay in F2 for one more year.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you two saying then that Russell's not going to be in F1 next year?
No, I don't think so.
It feels too early for me.
That's going to be mad though, isn't it though? If think about it, the winner potentially of F2 ends up not getting a seat, and yet a runner-up of F2 does get a seat.
I think Merc are now going to be praying to God that Norris can keep up the momentum he had last race in F2 at Hungary, keep up that momentum that Norris wins it, has to leave, but he's got a seat anyway, and then Russell can stay for one more year. They'll be praying for that.
Russell would need another year, he's on a good progression, but he needs to carry on his racecraft.
I'm not sure how penciled in Sirotkin is anyway, especially if Stroll's millions of dollars do not come into the team. I'm not sure how much Sirotkin brings to the team, so I don't know if he's set in stone.
Mercedes,
it could be Ocon and Russell.
That would be
especially because Williams are negotiating these gearboxes with Mercedes for next season. So who knows? I think Williams can't have a worse season than this year, that's for sure. So I think there's positives for them. they seem to be developing next year's car and taking it very seriously, with the new wing already, the amount of flow vids on the car at Hungary, really wanting to understand how everything works next year. So it could be like 2014 where they have a bit of a resurgence, jump up the field a little bit. And also, let's be honest here, what makes you think, even though Force India got saved with Lance Stroll at the helm and Lance Stroll as his main driver, it could easily go pear-shaped and not really focus on the actual team itself and more focus on his son, and maybe lose their identity a bit, if you know what I mean.
I mean, I think at first it will be fine, but it's when Stroll maybe makes silly mistakes or does something.
It's like, who would want to go
wrong,
to that seat? Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Because preferential treatment is going to happen. And for example, Perez, with his sponsor money, I think he's not going to stand for it. That's why I could easily see him leaving. Personally,
yeah. I think
Haas are Perez getting majorly offended.
I think Haas are looking for a better teammate for K-Mag, because K-Mag's been doing a stunning job this season. And they're looking for a Perez-like driver, basically, that can just bring them points every race.
Yeah. So that means then that there's a certain Frenchman on the way out.
Yeah, Grosjean.
Grosjean. To be fair, he's been in this. He had his first season in 2000. Well, not first full season, but he had his first glimmer of Formula 1 in 2009. Came back 2012. So he's been around for a while. Hasn't really proved himself. Had a few podiums, but other than that, hasn't really done much. So it's a shame.
When he leaves, it will still be a bit of a shame because he has done a lot.
He's a likeable character as well.
In that very first season, especially, I think he was a big leader for Haas.
But it's a cutthroat business, and
it is.
If you put it in the wall, for example, behind the safety car, then that does, and then you can happily laugh about it afterwards. Then it does doesn't help you a lot. But is that all the teams? I think it is.
I think so. I think we've sorted out the jigsaw.
I guarantee we've got it all wrong. By the way.
Yeah. No. We're not like Niren. We're not like Niren, who says like a whole list of stuff and none of it happens, and the opposite happens. We're not him. All right. We might get some of it right. So we'll see, but let us know in the comments below for sure, guys. What you want to do a little list thing? That'd be quite cool to see the entire comment section, like a little bit of what your list is. Let us know what you reckon, or if you agree with us, then just say I agree with it. Let us know any opinions you have on any of those kind of deals or thoughts and drivers moving everywhere. But I think that's a nice time to wrap it up, guys, for the summer break. And the next podcast will be next week, hopefully, previewing the Belgium Grand Prix, the one we're going to, and then the podcast for Belgium will be maybe 2 days delayed. Belgium. Because we'll be recording it at Spa, and then I'll have to wait to come back home to then edit it and upload it. But that's the hopefully the game plan for the next two podcasts. So hope you guys are looking forward to that. But if you did enjoy this one, hit that like button. Let us know what you thought in the comments below, like I said. If you're around here, do get subscribed to this channel for the podcast. If you're new and you haven't seen these two, check them out. Twitter links on the screen right now. Also, obviously, you would have seen, whilst we're going on, we're on audio, SoundCloud, and iTunes, still going strong. And thank you to those of you who still do listen to that. Links in the description. And also, if you like what we do here, you can support us directly on Patreon as well. Links in the description. Or if you fancy getting like a racing chair, a desk chair for your new office setup, or whatever, you're trying to step into the world of esports a bit more, you can get a GT Omega racing chair and use the code PitlaneF1, and that will help us out as well. But that's been this one then for the summer break. Not so break for summer. But we'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.